I know a lot of people say discus are not for beginners, and honestly, I think they are right. But the catch is, it's not for the same reason that most people think. Now, people think that discus are, right, they're like super maintenance. But, being in this hobby for like 10 to 12 years now, especially breeding these fishes for like 2.5 years, I would say my take is discus is the most easiest fish to take care for. It's just that they've got their own set of requirements that you would need to address, right? Or as long as you have understood their special requirements, right? Now, it's not that they are difficult, it's just that they are different, okay? In this video, we'll talk about some of the fundamentals of discus keeping, right? And also what makes discus special when it comes to, fish keeping compared to the other fishes in the aquarium hobby. All right, so now the first and foremost is the water quality, right? There's a lot of this information out there that you don't have to chase parameters, you just have to be consistent, and all this information, I guess, is relevant to discus breeding, which is a completely different topic. And today we are just talking about the fundamentals of discus keeping from a hobbyist standpoint, right? So I just want to touch base a couple of parameters, right, as I talk about this first rule, the golden principle for discus keeping, which are two fundamental things. One is make sure that the water is a little softer, right? And also see if you can lower the pH of the water, because these guys, it's not that they can't handle hard water, or it's not that they can't handle high levels of alkalinity, but I guess if you can keep the pH a little lower and the water more softer, these guys will definitely thank you and give that extra glow, right? Now, the second fundamental is, or the second most important thing is, of course, being obsessed with clean water, right? When I say, or when I talk about this, I guess it's very simple and straightforward. Discus hate dirty water, right? Discus hate dirty water compared to any other aquarium fish. So this means you may want to be able to perform slightly more water changes, or ensure that there is overfiltration or adequate filtration in your tank. Now, the third rule that I'm going to talk about is no sudden changes. If there's one thing that these guys will not like, is a sudden change, be it of any form, right? It could be a sudden change in the temperature, it could be a sudden change in the water parameters like TDS or pH, whatever. It could be a change in any form, basically. It could be a sudden change. The fourth rule is, or my fourth advice when you're doing discus, right, is make sure that you have aquarium lids, right? Please ensure that you put a lid like this on top of your tank, and this may come a bit of a surprise, or maybe out of the blue, but discus can be jumpers. Yes, these guys can jump, and they jump a lot, and this happens usually, in my experience, this has happened in my farm during the night time when it's dark, and when they kind of experience a sudden noise or a jerk or a movement or whatever. So make sure that you're keeping a lid on top of the tank in your discus tank, at least in the. Now, the next rule or advice in discus keeping is lighting. Okay, I know that a lot of people say that discus generally hate light and too much brightness, and discus prefer to be in dark because they come from this brackish waters of the Amazon and all that, which is kind of true. But at the same time, I have experienced that, as long as you're able to keep up a certain routine and have the scheduled lighting, it does make a big difference in terms of their confidence and their glow and colors, right? Now the sixth rule is discus are one of the few fish that actually bond with their keeper, right? They recognize you, they come to the front when you walk in. You see this? You see how engaging they are. So they do better when you kind of talk to them and monitor them daily. I know it sounds a bit silly, but talking to them, watching them, loving them, keeping an eye closely helps a lot in this hobby. Now, the seventh rule is compatibility, the tank mates, right? Not every fish is a good roommate for discus. They prefer calm and peaceful tank mates, especially the species that won't nip their fins or compete very aggressively with them in terms of food and all. So I guess the good choices are tetras and corridoras. You see I have a couple of corridoras, which are such amazing bottom dwellers, cleaning crew. So you want to make sure that you're adding some really peaceful cichlids. And the eighth rule is the choice of substrate, right? Many discus keepers, including me, right, I prefer bare bottom because it's easy for me. It makes sure that each time there is the fish waste at the bottom, it motivates me to suck it up through the siphon and keep the tank clean. It gives me that having a bare bottom or a very thin substrate, it makes cleaning easier and keeps the water much more clearer, and this is exactly what discus love. Now the ninth rule is you need to be very frugal in terms of the amount of food that you're feeding with discus. You see, generally what I do is, this is my thumb rule, the pellets that I put, before it even reaches the bottom, I would really want my fishes to eat them, or the maximum that I would keep the uneaten pellets in the bottom is 2 minutes max to max, right? And these guys love small doses of food frequently, right? This is one of the most easiest hack when you want to bond with your discus fish. Now last but not the least, the 10th rule is, you see those 2 empty tanks at the bottom of my tank. Whenever I introduce new fishes, those fishes go to the bottom of my discus den, right? I keep the fishes in quarantine, so as long as they are on the bottom, it also makes sure that even if the water spills, it's not going to infect any other stock in the nearby tanks, right? So any new fish, especially discus, should be quarantined properly. Discus are expensive and sensitive, and one bad introduction can wipe out months of work. So yes, discus have some special requirements, but once you understand them and build your routine around them, right, especially on their needs, they become surprisingly easy and incredibly rewarding to keep. At the end of the day, discus aren't difficult, they are different. They're just particular. If you're willing to give them what they need, they will give you back some of the most beautiful fish you will ever want in the hobby.